So, what if the United States ended up like ancient Greece? It becomes a collection of these proud, independent city-states, these states of their own that eventually, though, one day collapse one by one into tyranny. Well, that's the warning that James Madison delivers in Federalist number 18. And he does a deep dive into history to show that weak confederacies don't preserve freedom. Well, they actually destroy it. And he says because when unity fails, ambition will fill that void, that empty space. My name is Matt Hasquin. I'm a high school history teacher, and hey, we're taking a journey through all the Federalist Papers, one by one, in order, all the way up to number 85, and here we are with James Madison and number 18. So let's kind of set the stage here. So the Federalist Papers, of course, are a set of essays that are written to support the Constitution. Well, the group that are opposed to the Constitution, the Anti-Federalists, are arguing that the new Constitution gave too much power to the new central government, or the government that would be created. Madison replies to the Anti-Federalists by saying, history proves that the opposite danger is far worse. And he looks back to history, kind of like what Hamilton's done and a few others. And he points to the Greek city-states. They're famous for their art and their philosophy and, well, like Athens, democracy. And he reminds readers that all of them eventually fell, not to conquest from abroad, but instead due to rivalry, jealousy, and then also endless internal wars. So Madison's core argument, his thesis, is historical, and it's also rather moral. Confederacies built on voluntary cooperation are doomed. So when states refuse to obey central authority, they become weak at home, they become divided abroad. And that's what destroyed the ancient world's greatest republics. And it's exactly what threatens the United States under the Articles of Confederation. Madison begins with Greece's first great league, the Amphictyonic Council. It was supposed to unite the Greek city-states in mutual defense and cooperation, but in practice, it became kind of this struggle, this battlefield of ambition. You had large powers like Thebes and Thessaly that were bullying the smaller members. Athens and Sparta then constantly fought for dominance. And then, when disputes arose, the council lacked any authority to intervene effectively. So, does it sound familiar? Well, it's the Articles of Confederation, except with Greek tunics. Now, when Madison notes this historical connection, he points out that Greece's downfall didn't begin with an invasion. It began with civil jealousy, is what he calls it. Athens and Sparta were each convinced it best protected liberty. They turned on each other, and they drug all of Greece into war. And so then the Peloponnesian War then destroys their strength. And when Macedon rose under Philip and then his son Alexander, the Greeks were too divided to resist it. And so liberty, it died not with chains, but instead it was all about pride. And then Madison then turns to the Achaean League, which is a confederacy that pops up later on that came closer to success, because it united many Greek city-states under a common government and a common council. And it had a better balance of representation. And for a while, it preserved both independence and also cooperation. But even the Achaean League fell apart, not because its system was too strong, but because its members failed to obey the system. So you had ambition and regional interest, and then rivalry between cities like now Sparta and Corinth. And that eventually tears the league apart. Now, Rome, Madison will say, conquered the Greeks not because of superior virtue, but because Rome was one government. It was unity that eventually defeated brilliance. Organization would go on to defeat passion. So the Greeks loved freedom, but they never learned how to share it. And so Madison's warning is pretty clear. America faces the same danger if it keeps its current system. Without a strong union, we will repeat the mistakes of the past, and that'll be a slow descent from liberty to chaos, and then eventually to conquest. Now, Madison's genius here is how he turns history into political science. he's not just like recounting battles and places and dates. He's actually identifying patterns. So every weak confederacy, from Greece to modern Europe, fails for the same reason: too much independence and too little enforcement. So he's teaching that good government requires power balanced by law, not law balanced by wishful thinking. So there is in Madison's tone in number 18, there's a quiet sadness to what he's putting out here. He admires Greece. He admires its genius, its creativity, its ideals, but he does, he laments that it couldn't, though those three things, the genius, creativity, and the ideals, couldn't sustain Greece. And he writes in the essay, their union, like ours, was based on the necessity of mutual defense, but their jealousies and ambition turned it into a source of discord. So he's speaking as much to Philadelphia in 1787 as he is to Athens in 431 BC. So we're to that point here in this video where we get into the chain of reasoning again, right? So we're going to tighten up Madison's logic here. So first of all, Madison makes the argument that weak confederacies depend on voluntary obedience. Add to that, voluntary obedience will collapse under ambition and jealousy. And then we have ancient Greece then proves disunity leads to tyranny and conquest. Then the Articles of Confederation repeat that same pattern. And so then the Constitution wraps it up by correcting it by giving law real authority. So if this is your homework assignment tonight, I summarized it for you again. Now, Madison does issue a warning, and he warns that if the states continue under a weak system, the Articles of Confederation, foreign powers will exploit our divisions just as Rome exploited Greece. And we'll fall not because of invasion, but because of rivalry disguised as patriotism. It's a warning as old as history, but it's also as current as politics. The brilliance of Federalist number 18 is that it still applies. So whenever we have partisanship replacing unity, whenever states or factions refuse to cooperate, the American experiment begins to drift toward the same danger that the Greeks faced. And so Madison's lesson is timeless. If you love liberty, you must also love structure. Now, the takeaways from number 18 here is, one, I think this is important, the past is a mirror. So confederacies without enforcement will collapse. Disunity always begins with pride, and it ends in subjugation. The Constitution is not imitation. It's actually evolution. It's growing. So Federalist number 18 is Madison's, it's his history lesson, but it's also a warning label all kind of rolled into one. He's reminding us that liberty doesn't die in a day. It fades, just one rivalry at a time until unity can no longer hold. So the Constitution, for Madison, was the answer that ancient republics never found. It was a balance between independence and cooperation, between local pride, but also national purpose. I'm Matt Hasquin, and this is another one of the Federalist Papers, and one of those things we should all know by being alive. If this helped you see how history still provides us with warnings today, please do the shares and the follows and stuff like that. And thank you for making it this far into the video. And please stay tuned for Federalist number 19. This is where Madison and Hamilton continue the history lesson. They turn from Greece to Germany to show how weak alliances fail again and again and again. Thanks for watching.